this is the very best time, right? This is the very best circumstances. So this is something to encourage ourselves.
다 소지 리조겜비 도제테 에서를 아마 좀 가봐도 다시 부터 관계 소지 리조겜비 그랬더니 와기 때문에 게임바레스.
And also to be able to encounter the tantric teachings, right? To remember how rare these are. In fact, Lama Tsongkhapa has said that the availability of the Vajrayana teachings is something even more rare than a Buddha appearing in the world.
오다 드리그네스 다 디사보 모여 강나로 선도 동아 강가게 때마다 자디요아레 오다 텐델리 코가 요가치 텐데 요하마레스.
So there are many other profound reasonings, but the point here is that to be able to encounter a presentation of the Buddha Dharma that has a complete incorporation of both sutra and tantra, this is something supremely fortunate.
저 되는 요래다 방광 요래 이나요 답하게 비아본도도 마도 때문도도 마도 저지데 아니 로트모이지 중화 사다데 해나면한테 자원다고 되는데스.
And so we could also say, another important point here, whether one is able to go well in the practice of Tantra, of Vajrayana, whether one is able to succeed in the practice of Vajrayana or not. This depends very much on a substantial cause of training in the common paths, in other words, in the path of sutra.
어떤 관계가 보에 다 쿠바도 마신 미돈다고데 로트모 지중화다 저거랜드 이스랜드스.
In fact, whatever Tantra or Vajrayana practice we speak of, we can look at it as like the structure of a house. And the foundation stone of that house is the training in the common paths, in the sutric practices.
어다 대초 템보지도 다 보게 가제 다 대템보 요멜라 따네라 단용하고 요래 야본도도 만도 소어디 이사레스.
So, depending upon one's stability in the Sutrayana teachings, that will actually be a key determining factor in whether one is able to meet with progress in the Vajrayana path, in the Tantric path, or not. There's another saying that the profundity of Tantra is due to the kindness of Sutra. The profundity of Tantra is due to the kindness of Sutra. Ale. Oh, right. The T dicen that mar gangla gangla nezo cha gangla. Ale, ti apu ko something. Ale ine dig do do ngak gidro do. Oh, right. So Geshe-lo is, I'm sorry, sometimes there's just like a cultural barrier. I do my best, but sometimes it just happens. There's some kind of thing that's like the essence of butter. I'm not sure what this is, but like you churn the milk into the butter. Okay, I get that. But this is like you churn the butter into the essence of this butter. And so the butter is like the sutra, and that delicious essence is like the tantric teachings. And so then, going back to these causes of progress in the Vajrayana path. So the first is a thorough training in sutra. The second is receiving abhisheka, empowerment. And then also being able to keep the samayas and vows of that empowerment. So actually, when you look in any of the tantric presentations, we see that these vows and commitments, these precepts and samayas, are something that is very key. So when we look right at these samayas and precepts, at these vows and commitments, then there's sort of clear kind of instructions about what behavior one is permitted to engage in and what behavior one is supposed to avoid.
되래. 다 저쪽으로 선바지 요래.
Listen, listen.
저쪽 선바테 다 가르서 서서 열려 가르치게 요네 될 돈도 쳐봐. 될 태조면 봐지.
태조면
따다 보게.
Yeah. So there's also a third key cause for progress in Vajrayana practice, right? So we talked about training in sutra, and then we talked about receiving the empowerment and maintaining the vows and samayas of that empowerment. The third is to practice with full confidence. This means that we are able to abandon any doubts about the practice we're engaging in. So if one is really a Vajrayana practitioner, these three factors are something to always keep in mind. And Geshe-la said that that's not just particularly about this practice. This is about any manifestation of tantric practice, any system of tantric practice, any sadhana that you may be doing. These are very important. Yeah, and actually, if we pay attention to these three causes, then we don't need to doubt that realizations will occur, right? They will naturally unfold. So then today, to begin our activities, Geshe-la is hoping that you can have all of the conditions for your practice to come out well. And because we are focusing on the practice of this Guru Yoga of the Inseparability of Avalokiteshvara and the spiritual teacher, he will give an oral transmission of this particular text. So Geshe-la said that in the colophon of the text, it mentions that His Holiness the 14th, Dalai Lama, as a young man, he composed this practice. And this practice was composed at the request of a devoted student. Geshe-la said either from the Nyingma or the Kagyu tradition. He's not sure which. Most likely Nyingma. So we should, it's not good to receive the transmission without making the request first, so I'm just going to do a short mandala offering before Geshe-la gives the lung. So first refuge and bodhicitta, then the mandala offering. Sangye chedan soge chenam la janshu badu dani kya suji dagi chenyen gibe sonange drola benjir sangye droba sho chedan soge chenam la janshu badu dani kya suji dagi chenyen gibe sonange drola benjir sangye drobar sho chedan sogi chenam la jangju bardu dani kyasu chi dagi chenyen gibe sanange drola benjir sangye drobar sho soji begi Chöbörjo idam guru ratna
Mendala
mendalaga
Gono
niryadayami.
Oya da ronje senje roari tuge senje yuzu o da sonji kombo mato bad da yane papa shirezi gutane shastro yi somba.
So think that in order to be able to lead myself and others, all 6 types of beings within samsara, to the state of supreme happiness, I must actualize the state of Arya Avalokiteshvara.
Ji tu ne de ji pusu tsuba da no ha ti ku de che da papa shirezi kombo to ba shiri sombe da jonju se.
So bring forth that bodhicitta, that very specific bodhicitta which thinks for the purpose of leading the 6 types of beings of samsara to that state of lasting happiness. I myself will actualize the state of Avalokiteshvara so that I can lead them there.
No jila yuar papa shirezi lo shwa tu shi tu nga zo ko won ji jin tu as o da de shi na shwa tu cha ji
Tundachi ale.
shi tu cha ji
Shen
de
Tundachi.
go ko ten du as
Yeah.
o da de je de ji to so na da kan ga da to ya re.
So Geshe-la said that when we look at different manifestations of Chenrezi, there's one that is known as Chaktong Chentong, 1,000-armed and 1,000 eyes. And when we think about those 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes, it really represents how Chenrezi is all-seeing and can reach out in myriad ways in any way needed to help for the benefit of sentient beings.
O ya da de ma le de gi ro.
So then Geshe-la will now read the Guru Yoga text for the oral transmission, so just listen with attention.
Ja go ni ji rong je chu chu cha ya yu zu sha la de ji ge ga ji la ma shi re ji la ge de ne de na jo sa me cho ga be to ji de na sa jo do sa ma la su me ba ru nga
Mikshe-ge.
Maka te to ji de na sa jo do sa ma la su me ba do la de tan me de ru ji yo bo ne je ji nga la do me chi wi ji ngi su shu do yi ji zhe ge zu che zhe wa la na me no ge ko ge cha ji re ji Om namo bhagava tembe da sara chamana dana tata gata ya ara de sunya sombi da ya te da om be me ma te da me ma be ma bodo da me ma bodo me da pa so chamana me de sawa kama awara na bo da na be zai so kha ge jo san je dan ba dong song je dong song je sama dong je xin je la dong cu ni yong si zu be nga dong jin ba dong ji ji no ba song je ma cha be to ji de je de je ji de je leng zhe ji ge kai zhe na su ge song je zhe ji bi chi bi yi san ge de be gen ba no bi zhe ji ji de ji be de de ni ji de ju pa chung ji de那么我们就从一的个就在那么是的多见这个就路我点子讲这吧。ka ma dong sa ji bin zi jia jie shuai yi tu ga qi jie shuai jia yi le bo ra zhe qin bi bi ga dong ye ba nyu zhe wa zi dong ko lo no ka ge nu de ji ge no so dong zong min xian du bei xiang zi ba so pi gu xie jie ye dong ye lo no ri nga ya ye xian ba xian ma ma du chui rong zhe ji ko ko lu zu那你给这笔课程一下你没写多介绍注空的就这个在这笔就个一些什么写的这下介绍的都是他们这我们写这边嘛个不弄的季节多大就那啥是的把边那么也报告大一弄做别的就注第一对个电子线吧那么是一个啥个这说就这那面呢，这个都是说你在推给婚姻里，这个在这个上就出手嘛，那些什么的，特别像那跟的我就啥做成本这边多做个年纪就是用的我们去啥用钱这边嘛，爸爸该对送手检查可乐给这个这么大比如的嘛就大比如东嘛就前面这你说一这里东东些东第三上面那个给做个。 各种接着家做明年不是马里头比马给一年比这种看那马的就是。路巴西比农啊叫几班节多这比明明我多少八的啦，明明那么大爸爸那么特色些不中间同节。第四那个给屏幕啦，你呢送把大笔记要容那做多些，看这个接送一东西干是来一种没。啥些用说注意这个心里这边你的路都说是这么大，这眼多了么多个的运这么多。下水也我们些什么猪上面多去吃了点吧就那个那些激动的这个。一走拉面站面进走几个种切球写球拉面路用着连着个电动做着多少个啥就比人们都是让人的地方都属于现在面的不吧如果那到些了些吧说大些另外一种路也这些给多些人们那什么工作就比如说罗伊伦的拉玛也都感觉是拉玛的情况给现在到了新疆了都也都跟着那面着了过来呀大家么记着了明明对个吧说里面的这个那个就爸爸容给小年纪的这种觉得你这嘛里头把这就我们个人别在那面着我们个人别在那面着是我跟这个什么都下山了在什么现在别的啥事都轰差多有就的我们里别就马路的这然后下就平波年年的说就大别他妈生气了，拿出息这么当就的托就么这边弄多前面，那弄下一弄有没有哇？多去些运大哇，想起了这个年天气里，小别不是就是点就下车来就，刚到来的就381的不给这你把想起了是没了这。这让我给不足各种路期间都推我就这边几个人拉手原来下把相就后面天天整起来兄弟是一个越南人嘛就引着我厕所呢谁就那些的下把家做了相就了他都有面鸟家面路我他这点呢东边我咱们国面这一是老孙的就那就急了就相就了这点都进这边新这里去上我就过去呢，我这才我到这多嘛了，这就是我那把想就了，里面的东西就在那去。个些来旅叫我那些呢，个头选举的去下家去参的，我等叫我想起了。铁大说的为了嘛，就几个现在中给做别人大姐你们些提来的，天天那用别的，那每个380在俺就稍微。就给说他一直我这个过来的这将把那的都的这6个钟多一点，假设谁在一小老马里头那用个这那几些种的农场这是把别说是，去那就去了你把这就。你把这就我们那边红的菜那些大家不急。不记着了，大家一起这个的，才了些这开啥给别啥去，西巴这别，西单子这去不做给那些，那就别干的，吃些那别家菜去，没能些说那这玩意白天的玩不动就。这些人这给面去用不地这个月么做他心里的些弄他一个在一节弄把这位呢就见到那些成王给去咱们你就即使人的跟着50顺序加啥慢慢的了你的才就是这世界这也没就对兄弟跟的么的个做事儿世界给了让你到哇但是脾气给这大一扎西说我这些个讲真，当地么关系，我觉得，就是这帮人这来些的这些当地可能自己自己的，都那这边的也没干嘛的，基本的那老，我当地自己靠自己自己的，可能人家都不差。
So Geshe said he's finished with the actual text. He was just seeing if there was anything in the colophon that needs to be transmitted, but no. So then in this way, you've received the oral transmission of this Guru Yoga, of the Inseparability, of Avalokiteshvara, and the spiritual teacher. Karimondran? No. Geshe said he had too many sweets, so he's got a runny nose today. Yeah.
So then
this was the lung, the oral transmission for the practice that we've been engaging in this last little while. So then let us turn to page 6 and begin with the practice. Yeah. Yeah.
Could you turn up the main slightly?
The main is in my one or Geshe-la's one?
No, the main is for both.
Oh,
It's one
okay.
that's called main. Just bring them both up, or turn both of them up slightly.
No, I'm happy to do that,
Yep.
but I remember I turned it down slightly because last time people found it too loud. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I can do that.
자기하고 거성 거서. 응? 개체라성.
Okay, so is it too? I'm seeing different comments. Some people are saying it's too loud, and some people are saying it's too
Yeah.
quiet. So
Well, I think with a musician, you need to turn it up slightly.
okay, I will. All right. So I just go to the input. Oh, the input level is at maximum.
Oh, okay.
I can't adjust that anymore.
Okay,
I can
that's it.
turn up the gain, but that
Yeah.
may make it too loud for people.
Just a hair, couple hairs.
Also, if people are listening on phones and other devices, it will naturally be a little softer. That's how the world works, unfortunately. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. So, yes, so let's begin on page 6 then. I'll also try to talk closer into the mic. Maybe that'll help.
Maybe that won't be too loud.
It'll be too loud. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well,
Just normal.
Okay, normal. Okay. All right. We'll do our best. Sangye chedan soge chenam la jangju. What?
Nothing. Sorry.
Oh, I think Dave, you are. Yeah. Oh, okay. I thought you were telling me something. You're just chanting. Okay, it's all good. All right. Sangye chedan soge chenam la jangju bardu dani kyasu chi dagi jinso gi be tsunam gi drola penjir sangye drobar sho sangye chedan soge chenam la jangju bardu dani kyasu chi dagi jinso gi be tsunam gi drola penjir sangye drobar sho sangye chedan sogi chenam la jangju bardu dani kyabsu chi dagi jinso gi be tsunam gi drola penjir sangye drobar sho. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by my accumulations of generosity and so forth. May I become a Buddha to benefit living beings. Semjin tamje dewa dam dewe gyudam demba joji semjin tamje dunga dam dunga gi gyudam jawa joji semjin tamje dunga mebe dam mi jawa joji semjin tamje nirin jadan nidan jawe tanrom neba jorechi. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that knows no suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of attachment and hatred for those held close and distant. So we already actually went for refuge and generated bodhicitta, but now let's take a little bit of time to sort of generate these 4 immeasurables, understanding that these 4 immeasurables are the assisting factors, like the water and the fertilizer, for the sprouting of that mind of bodhicitta. And so we see that the first line of these 4 immeasurables, it mentions immeasurable love for all sentient beings.
소매가 대화 타두게 대화도 되나 주마루 녀바 대바 찌찌 대바 다기 샤고 녀도스다 슈치르치르 돈일다 트리소고 yes.
So we can think about this first one, immeasurable love, in a very specific way. May all sentient beings have both contaminated and uncontaminated happiness, and the causes of contaminated and uncontaminated happiness. May these happinesses be actualized. I myself alone will help them to reach these happinesses. And then the next one that we contemplate is immeasurable compassion. How wonderful if all beings were separated from both suffering and its causes. May they be separated from suffering and its causes. May this be actualized. I myself alone will help to separate them from suffering and its causes. And the next one, immeasurable joy. And then finally, immeasurable equanimity. And as we think about, may those beings have immeasurable equanimity, think that so many of the problems that beings experience is because of the biased minds of holding some close and others distant, attachment and aversion. Think, may they be free of that. So we'll pause there. Yeah. So Geshe-la said there's different kinds of practices of generosity. And one is the generosity of giving beings fearlessness. And when one meditates on the immeasurables this way, especially immeasurable equanimity, this is a practice of the generosity of giving fearlessness. So let's continue. Tamje duni saje da sema lazo me badon la de tanyam bende ye ramjin jambor nejor. Everywhere may the ground be pure, free of pebbles and so forth, as level as the palm of a hand, in the nature of Vaidurya, and soft. Ladami chebe ngozu shandang yigiju guzang cheche lana me namge gongo jajarji. May divine and human offerings, both actually arranged and mentally emanated, become clouds of the finest Samantabhadra offerings, filling the entire realm of space. Om Namo Bhagavate Benza Sava Pramadana Tathagata Arahate Samya Sambuddhaya Tayata Om Benza Benza Maha Teja Benza Mahabidya Benza Mahabodhicitta Benza Mahabodhi Mandopa Sakramana Sarva Kama Avarana Visodhana Benza Swaha Om Namo Bhagavate Benza Sava Pramadana Tathagata Arahate Samya Sambuddhaya Tayata Om Benza Maha Teja Benza Mahabidya Benza Mahabodhicitta Benza Mahabodhi Mandopa Sakramana Benza Savakama Avarana Vishodhana Benza Swaha Om Namo Bhagavate Benza Sava Pramadana Tathagata Arahate Samya Sambuddhaya Tayata Om Benza Maha Teja Benza Mahabidya Benza Mahabodhicitta Benza Mahabodhi Mandopa Sakramana Benza Savakama Avarana Vishodhana Benza Soha Kunju Sungi Dempadang Sangi Dang Janju Sempe Tangchiki Jinji Lado Suni Yonsu Zobe Ngadang Chenpo Dang Chiki Namba Dachi Sangi Mikabe Toji Dejin By the power of the truth of the three jewels, the blessings of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the great wealth of the completed two accumulations, and the force of the pure and inconceivable Dharma Dhatu, may these offerings become suchness. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll go through the visualization, and just so that Geshe-la has more time to give commentary, we'll just do this in Tibetan. Dejin rundro chege kayen su na zo gozon chedren chebe Senge deva gemba no vitre chege nida gebe dende Nije deje bajo jiden wa namba ngome chawe degajin Zawe lama sunden doje jizun no zan denzen janze ba Kama danza jibe zuja je chaye duga je chagayi le bam rade zembe bega don yemba nyamja zedon kolo Gurgun don den chigu nazo don Zumi zedo benje zebazu Bunga jeje yodon yelanam Ringa yayun semba zemadam Troye rangje gyego golo zo Nange jen jibe goje Jani mi je doje gyuzu Gandu gyuzu jawe jage Duga yeshe semba jerezi Shaji joji danzo damoja Ome shede bema kabonam Rijin gedan dajoy nazanzim Rida babe numayen bagadawe Lanzo beda gijun Deyi tuga dinzen zembani Riyi kaza geze chujojo Alame nezo doje sanje ze Duge hoye le
jo chosa male jedonde tambe jane gonde o jo.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, so Geshe-la said neither of us have a particularly, how do you say this, mellifluent a voice, so we beg your pardon, and that is sincere.
다 단다데 시리즈 야 라면나 조세 코 드타스케 자키야 마레스 데이터테 코 샤지레 코 라메레사 게 제셔야 마레스.
So strictly speaking, this particular practice of Avalokiteshvara is a guru yoga. So in this way, it's not actually what they would call a druptap or a sadhana. And because it's not specifically a druptap, we couldn't easily slot this practice into the various categories of tantra. For example, action or kriya tantra or highest yoga tantra and so forth. Yeah. So actually, Geshe-la said you could see it as related to all the various systems of tantra and practiced with those flavors. So we see though with a sadhana, with a druptap, right, it's usually quite clear within that text whether this is a practice of Anuttara Yoga, highest yoga tantra, whether this is a practice of performance tantra, action or kriya tantra, and so forth.
다 들이는 노진이 가서 다 몸보치가 많은 몸인데 그야래 되네 시리즈가 다 주마라와 아니 지서 도마레 어다더니 몸보사게 야에서 샤지던데 몸보야에서 와서도 된가는 대시 대자기스.
So Geshe-la said that, however, when he's commenting on the meditative methods related to this, because many of the people who are participating, he thinks they're regularly accumulating the mantras and doing the practices of Tara and Chenrezi in particular, because the majority of those practices are related to Kriya Tantra, he's going to kind of gloss this Guru Yoga practice with some meditation methods from the Kriya Tantra, the Action Tantra class.
셔도 노지다 샤지도 던들리는 다 노지가 좀 던데 기타 던데니 와서 베칼라 디제야라 저샤 tsuna 같이 모레 숨겨야레스.
And so then normally when one is engaged in a practice of the Kriya Tantra sadhana, there is an important aspect of this known as the 4 branches of recitation.
다기절 좋아. 연지절 좋아. sen지절 좋아.
And so these 4 are remaining fixed on oneself as the basis, remaining fixed on others as the basis, remaining fixed on mind as the basis, and remaining fixed on sound as the basis. So I'll say that one more time. Remaining fixed on oneself as the basis, remaining fixed on others as the basis, remaining fixed on mind as the basis, and remaining fixed on sound as the basis.
This one, what that is, Jetata, Koro, Pogingwas,
So really, in particular, with the practice of Vajrayana generally, and in particular with the verbal and mental recitation of the mantras, these are kind of 4 branches indicating different points of focus. So then, remaining fixed on oneself as the basis, those of you familiar with Kriya Tantra practices such as Chenrezi and Tara, you will know that this is taking oneself as the deity and so forth, and on that basis doing the Kriya practice known as the 6 deities. And so I should say here, these are not like actual 6 deities like we normally think of them, but they're 6 methods of practice. And so the first of these 6 deities is the emptiness deity, and we know that emptiness is important with any practice that we could talk about. So that's an important meditation. So one of Geshe-la's precious teachers, he mentioned how it's so important to begin with emptiness because it's that space of emptiness awareness from which one is able to engage very well in any aspect of the practice, accomplish whatever one wishes.
Jimalari ba ragono de jubare, rana jimalari be kuchuramando, rago cheramando, o ta teji kanga ta tumbani.
So if you're familiar with the life story of Lord Milarepa, you'll know the story with his disciple and where he was able to, during a rainstorm, take shelter in a ram's horn. And when he took his shelter in that horn, it seemed that neither did the horn get bigger, nor did Milarepa's holy body get smaller. And phenomena like this, cities like this, are possible because of emptiness.
Yeah,
so when one is able to kind of meditate profoundly on emptiness, then these are some of the results that can come. So out of these four branches, remaining fixed on oneself as the basis, within that one, the six deities practice of Kriya Tantra are very important, and specifically the first deity of emptiness. Yeah, so Oma sen na karisi. Right. And so Geshe-la said, remaining fixed on oneself as the basis, others as the basis, mind as the basis, and sound as the basis. These will become very relevant when we come to the mantra recitation part of the practice. So remaining fixed on others as the basis, this is actually the focus on the deity. So in this case, on the deity Avalokiteshvara with the spiritual master, sort of putting one's focus or attention on that. And then when one places attention on the moon seat at the deity's heart, this is remaining fixed on mind as the basis. So it's important to understand the symbolism here, that this moon disk at Chenrezi's heart is the physical representation of his holy mind in meditative equipoise upon emptiness. Remaining fixed on sound as the basis, that's the next step as the practice unfolds, the sound of this particular mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. Younger sundang? Yeah, kali sundang. Yes, hagozo. Yep. Right. And so then when we come to the recitation, sorry, I mean, it's easy, but if it comes too fast, I can't hear, right? So my apologies. So Geshe-la said that as we go through the recitation, we have the embodiment of the deity as Chenrezi. We're paying attention to this, as well as the disc at his heart, as well as the mantra, which is upon that disc.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then this is the practice which Geshe-la mentioned a little bit yesterday, which is this mental recitation. So we are observing the mantra of Om Mani Padme Hum at Avalokiteshvara's heart. And at that point, we are holding the breath with this practice of restraining vitality and exertion, or pranayam. And as we hold our breath, we are focusing on that mantra and the mental recitation.
This one?
So we have this awareness, right, that we are reciting this mantra mentally, not verbally. We are reciting this mantra mentally, and our object of focus with that mental recitation is the mantra garland at the deity's heart. So this word that we're using for vitality and exertion for the pranayama, sok tsul in Tibetan. The first of this word, sarata sanarosoga sok, this is actually referring to wind, and we can understand the second syllable of this word, ratsata sanarotsula tsul, tsul, as Geshe-la is laughing because like the way I spell is like maybe my pronunciation's bad, but hopefully those of you who know Tibetan spelling out is helpful to you. And the tsul is actually referring to the kind of pacification of the namtok, of the discursive thoughts.
미도 카도다 된다 저 이거 가와네요나 리도 또는 노토도 강가파 거기 예송도 그야래.
So it's a restraining practice to not only restrain the wind, in other words, the breath, but also conjoined with that to really subdue the discursive, scattered thoughts.
다 할레비타니 깔레 첨보 채소나 다단 왜 또도 또 쇼노 그러와 대이나이다 너기요 소노도 양이알 때레마도 난저 템포 데토 말와.
Yeah, so Geshe-la also said in the beginning, right, this is a practice, so we know that as we are holding this breath and trying to focus on that meditation of the mantra garland, we can't really, most of us will not be able to hold our breath for that long, right? So it's kind of acceptable to sort of briefly exhale and then breathe in again, but we want to kind of visualize or imagine that we're actually holding that breath for a long time.
다그 실로 또기 손베 초와 취초와 레소나 깔레카소나.
Yeah.
아고사라
Yeah.
다른 미파티 제보자는 소소 담아바텔 소노도 해지.
Yeah.
레레치니 데아레스.
So, but when you are really tired and you feel that you want to do kind of a deep exhalation and just be able to let go, at that time, your mental focus is it's supposed to shift back to yourself. So in the context of this guru yoga practice, right, as Geshe-la mentioned yesterday, this would be our attention goes back to ourself in an ordinary form.
다때 미소자이 티세 미케잖아. 이야.
Yeah, so that's actually time to kind of rest from the meditation.
세 가사칼 마토네 소소로 따니 달헬레소니 데아레스.
And at that point, kind of trying to rest in our ordinary body, but also trying to pacify the mind from going to too many external objects, right? Not being distracted.
다때 이게 주일라면은 와서 도지 대지레스.
So this is a particular meditation which is using as the object of focus the letters of the mantra.
근데 가솔라바 노지레 드네 요 미소자비 칼 소소 달라시에 되와나 드타이나 소소 할면은 드네 레레소니 대지레스.
So in the context of not a guru yoga practice, but a sadhana, a druptap of Avalokiteshvara, this practice would be a bit different because you would have done the self-generation as Avalokiteshvara, and so then even in this relaxing phase, you are kind of meditating on your body as the deity.
대치 디바체 다 내서 스만다 호텔라 드링아스 다 드리테스 디디서 그러와스 내서 스만다 호텔 어느 미사치 바체
Yeah.
미미도 이게 줄라 메데요와
Yeah.
다 소노토 베칼 루칸 의도 강가치
Yeah.
놀 베칼 소소 돈 베칼
Yeah.
다와 마테도 치바데 소소 니칼 실레소
Ganzo yen lak dun roma song di digirabe.
다 된다 그래 소소 칼칼
So then Geshe-la said that we're gonna my apologies, we're going to build on this practice using a different visualization this time. So instead of just focusing on the letters of the mantra at the deity's heart, sort of when we breathe in, we're going to imagine that we breathe in the disc and mantra garland from the Lama Chenrezi in front of us, and that these dissolve into ourselves. This is another meditation. Yeah, so from the front, so Geshe wanted to make sure I said the front deity. I think I did, but yes, the front deity of Chenrezi, because remember this is a guru yoga, we're not in self-generation. So the front deity of Chenrezi, the disc, and the mantra garland upon it, then come to us and dissolve into us. And as we're visualizing that, we also think that we are continuously, mentally reciting Om Mani Padme Hum. And so, when you get to the point where you really feel tired and you just need to do kind of a deep exhalation, At that point, what you're supposed to visualize is the offering the disc along with the mantra garland back to the front generation of the holy being.
하고서 어다 대샤지 루고 당와서도 자냐 첨부 서스데레서 드네오죠.
So Geshe-la said that these meditations that he's given you, these couple of meditations, are meditations sourced from the methodology of Kriya, or action tantra.
이게 주일음이 봐. 센텐데서 서레스.
Yeah, and so these are three ways of abiding in focus during this mental recitation.
다 이게 달음이 봐. 원에서 말아요.
And then we have also so that's the concentration abiding in letters and syllables that we talked about, different ways of doing that. There's also one known as the concentration or the samadhi abiding in sound.
다 와서 발음 못 봐. 하고서라 매니게 소데. 다니게 소데.
Yeah.
어단 다타 타바티비 소데 소데 말아왔음.
So these are concentration abiding in sound, concentration abiding in fire, and concentration abiding in beyond sound.
다 셰레지 두칼라 다 멜로로 바데와스. 다또 이제 돈이 또 베세임 발라.
Kare me
매지 바데요 바치 소노 돈이 텔라메네 오마사야.
Omani pe mihundi ro. Yeah. So then a concentration abiding in fire. This also involves thinking about the mantra garland of Chenrezi, Om Mani Padme Hum, but we imagine that it is kind of surrounded by flames. The mantra itself is sort of burning in flames.
하테 고자야르마도 와사야 게지 말했어.
And so Geshe-la said at this point, this is not a recitation of the mantra. This is just a meditation, actually. It's a meditation on the mantra surrounded by these flames.
다 다니게 소데서 파타는 메인 발라 듀노니 오마네 빼메 후 다치 파 저버터바 노지 쫙요 소노 돈이.
And concentration abiding in sound, concentration abiding in sound, one can build on top of the concentration abiding in fire. So one visualizes the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum in flames, and then in addition to that, one imagines that the sound of the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum manifests continuously like a bell being rung, Geshe-la said. So one should also try to imagine that one is hearing the sound of this mantra in a very, very clear way.
다 타마 타미 소테 tel라 다타 타바 테비 소테 타발요 인에 치키테 이자 던지게 다테요.
Yeah.
근데 다도 매도 강가로로 아니 자니 로지지 메바.
So then the next one, which is the concentration abiding in liberation beyond sound, concentration abiding in liberation beyond sound, is that one reflects how the sound of the mantra has no pinpointable essence, how it lacks inherent existence. So then one can imagine that when one is practicing concentration abiding in fire and concentration abiding in sound, that these two practices in particular are to develop shine, calm abiding. When one is meditating on the meditation on the liberation beyond the end of sound or beyond sound, this is actually the union of calm abiding and special insight, shamatha and vipassana. Yeah. And so Geshe-la said also, if one is doing a sadhana rather than a guru yoga practice and one is arising in the self-generation as the deity, one can imagine the mantra garland in the flames and so forth at one's own heart as the deity. And for some folks that may work better.
Oh, 다 드링한 저 응화사에 들려서 응화사도 대해서 말하와디 사사제 제보자기 있어.
알레로서. So ngasa 연락 din drama 송기.
야라 대인이면 더 그래도 뭐.
테지 전 drone.
야, 또 뭐 알았지 다 있어 그.
Ale. So Geshe-la, before we continue with the sadhana, he'd like to introduce a brief visualization.
다 소소가 너저 부겐더니 파 답에서 자치 뭐지 알아와서 다 텔은 노지 소소 사자 가쇼 Zombalil Saja Gaju Pong Jachimbo, Tamedo Yopakar, Yopatanisa, Yobo, Chikazeta the sea tax.
So imagine that from within the sphere of emptiness in the place in front of you, a very beautiful environment manifests. And you can think maybe of your favorite place, whether it's a vast meadow with streams and so forth, with flowers and things like this. You can visualize this in front.
Meduk Tani, Kase Machulas, Medo Yoga Kanga, Tapakundi Yobachi.
That this beautiful meadow and grasses is ornamented with many beautiful colored flowers, different kinds of flowers.
Shidu Gita, Sayagarinda, Amadash, Shimbokanga Yobachi.
And one can imagine shrubs in this meadow with beautiful fruits and other wonderful things to eat.
Tandi Sajitsuma Pum Jachimbotat, Diga Chichi Sosogata, Donpa, Danatane, Tanya Wajila, Singachimojigiti, Trupasupachi.
And within this beautiful flowered meadow, as one gazes ahead, one sees a beautifully jewel-encrusted throne held up by 8 snow lions. And upon that throne are the 3 types of cushions representing renunciation, definite emergence, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, respectively. And one can imagine that one invites the Guru deity from the land of Potala to be seated upon this throne. The deity has 4 arms, 2 in Anjali holding a jewel, and then the others holding a crystal rosary and stem of a lotus. Sorry, so we've gone backwards. So one imagines the guru form holding the stem of the lotus with the text on top, and at the guru's heart is then the 4-armed Chenrezi holding the jewel and the crystal rosary and lotus. And then Shri, the concentration being at Chenrezi's heart. So this is the triple stacked being of the Lama, the deity, and the syllable. And not just being passive in this visualization, but thinking that the Guru deity is really here. We can imagine that on either side of us are our father and our mother, and behind them all 6 types of sentient beings in samsara, but in human form. And think that all of us together with a mind of great faith or confidence go for refuge to the Guru deity. And then think that as I engage in the practice of accumulation and purification through this practice of the 7 limbs, so too do all the assembled beings together with me engage in this practice of prostration, offering, and so forth. So we'll continue.
yala mamenda chi parwa
Yeah. So the 7 limbs and the mandala. Sezo zembe zebe donje go nyenje zhe yonden game su zayan chenze baba gawe du sonzo geje golo geja da bezun da mazun jebe zhe jan yi zhe le dan long xie dan di se sa be nang ga ge zu ge ge zang jie zhe ga zi ne ne ba ma re de bo ma ge yi ne be cha rang ka na ma de de du zo lo ba je be no ba je je ba je de ja be me me ngon de sha pe de la me non ba da va da de zo je ba rong je tong je je de zo na ga ge pu mo la nye ne song ba da bi ji ro na zo de je kong je ji zo ni tong ji ga zo la yi ro me ra sha ji yi zo zhu yi do ge ni ni zhe be ni li long de zo se je me da zhe bi ne do la zhe ge de yi yu zhe ma do ba sha zhe ye wa me je zhe mo zhu zhe me do ji zhe lai de ba zhu nam ga le je je do ji zhe ge je zi la me zhe me je zi ji ge zong xie zhe me lo yong zhe ni zhe ge den de zu jiang do xiong hong sa ji be zhe jiu xi me do zhang ri ra ling xi ni Kiso kiso je renche menda sombo kiso je be so lo yi lo ne lama yi do kencho sala bo tu ji wang yi ne da la shen je la do so yi do nguru menda la kono ya da ya mo. That's good. So in this way we've completed the prostrations, confession, offerings, and so forth. So Geshe-la thought that he wants to be able to explore the meaning of the 7 limbs a little bit more deeply, so he'll direct your attention back to page 12 to the verse on rejoicing.
보고 추슈 간에서 갈래자네 다 단다이나요. 가서 가는 가서 통근도 왔어.
Yeah, so when it says in the heaps of thoroughly pure virtue accumulated in the three times by the complete liberation of the glorious gurus, we think the three times of the past, present, and future. So, for example, we can remember His Holiness the Dalai Lama yesterday during the teaching, reflecting upon his encounter with virtuous practices from a very young age.
다 손지게 땜바 sen지게 대시 다 치켈레마도 말레마 강가라다 배도라고 저는 야서 배도 소토바 시월에 되어래.
And because of that, it's very clear that His Holiness became a being capable of bringing great benefit to the teachings, to the Buddha Dharma, great benefit to sentient beings, and able to benefit even those beyond the Buddhist community, right? Those of many different religious or no tradition.
다 강가치 켈레마도 말레마 강가다 텀보야보 신에 대해서 다 대강서 강기 수자 그건 되선 깔아서 오지 대시는 왔어.
And one of His Holiness's main advices to us yesterday was that whether one believes in the Dharma or not, the most important thing is for us to work together to be able to abide together in this world harmoniously as human beings.
다 지지 파시 내바시 다 마자 다닌다 마다서 대야 등이네서는 대세 이위기다 네스레스.
Really, it's time to end this time of conflict, of war, of prejudice, and so forth with one another.
하고서
그래서.
다 든지 대이자 다 대지 든지게 내서 단두는 시원도 와서 받으려면 넘바 타바르지. 아니 간디 갈래자와나 다 간디 표도 시원에 대지 다 지서 요로 쪼지줘야 돼.
So going back to this rejoicing in the heaps of the thoroughly pure virtue accumulated in the three times by the complete liberation of the glorious gurus, this is one example, right, of a guru and the activities engaged in the past, present, and future.
다 파슈 되거든요. 야 수소 파슈데 뚜바 토메라 때네 다 소소게 와라야.
Yeah, so Geshe-la said that it is said that when we are able to rejoice in the virtues that others have accumulated, that we actually for ourselves get a portion of those virtues. So rejoicing is an easy way to accumulate merit for realization. So Lama Tsongkhapa advises that if one wants to be able to accumulate a vast amount of merit with very little effort, then the supreme practice for this accumulation is the practice of rejoicing. We think maybe this practice of rejoicing is something that's too easy, so we don't pay much attention to it, but actually it's one of the most effective methods for accumulating merit. Yeah. So Geshe-la said by ordinary beings and Aryas of the three vehicles. So Aryas means the Nyente. Yeah. Arya. Kongso choksu. Yeah. So the hearers, the solitary realizers, and the bodhisattvas. So because they actually through great effort have reached these various high levels of realization, then their merits are particularly powerful. So when we rejoice in those, it is a vast accumulation. Yeah, so this word is the ordinary beings and Aryas of the three vehicles. So Teksum is the three vehicles, Ke Pak. So Pak there is Arya. So Geshe-la's like, yes, Kedrup said Arya. That's right. I was actually reading the English of the sadhana, so it's not on me. I was just reading the translation correctly. But yes, so the Pakpas, the Aryas, are those solitary realizers, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas. And so all of those beings who do not yet have that direct realization of empty emptiness, these are, in this categorization, categorized as ordinary beings. And then those beings who have reached this realization of emptiness, they are of these three types that we mentioned.
다 디지구테 자체wan다고 로제 통제지 디슨데 너가 롱 예스는 다 차선으로 살아왔어. 오늘 디슨데서 비교와.
And we take the basis of rejoicing even further in the next part of the verse. So those ordinary beings, the Aryas, by myself, so our own virtues, and all others, every other last sentient being. And in this way, the basis of rejoicing is very vast.
어단 위안 도밀리텔 알치보타와 이나 치료가 돈을 로바체키 당인의 센젤 펜바드키 가세요 아래. 어다 치료 치킬레말 마티바 다니 오버기 펜바드키 가세요 아래.
So we can divide this in different ways. For example, we can think of all of the wise advisors of the various great religious traditions of this vast world who engage continuously in activities to benefit others. We can think of all of those who are atheists or agnostics without a religious tradition who, with kindness, engage continuously in activities to benefit others and rejoice in those virtues.
어다 던지소노 또게이나 다 디나 임파게 가르스 디필레 몽보 치파게 또한도야 시보치 텐데요 아레스.
And through rejoicing in this way, not only is it an accumulation, but it's also very clear that this can be a profound purification, a clearing away of negative karma.
어다 쪼치 땡가도 좌도라 텐데 니바 몽보치 와다 대직 파게 주마소야 다 녀바치 레스.
Specifically, rejoicing is said to be a very effective purification for misdeeds that we've engaged in compelled by jealousy.
데른 디송아.
Yep, listen.
다 디지코테 나조 디지 콘제 지송이 돈치가스 라이 로미다. 돈치가스 라 모차데. 라 자샤 자근노니 다 자샤까지 자지나 가세이나 지가.
Yeah.
모차데게 된다.
Yeah.
디서그네서 여보 신경 요아레스. 돈치가스 사데. 라이예데.
Sorry, 야보코마송. 담체 kapsum.
가슴 세게도야.
Yep.
가슴 바 세게 요아레스.
Ale, la direbe. Okay. Yeah.
노진지데 베라스도 라서이나 하고서.
Yeah.
네서 여보 신경 요아레스.
내서 숨는
소소 가와시에 그래.
Ale.
사자 가와시에 그래. 가와네 레소.
Yeah.
던지기네서 되르지.
So Geshe-la said that it's speaking the profound and peaceful melody of the divine music of sacred Dharma, appropriate to the disposition of Lagyomaridela, 건데 인지케 녀를 잡아도 하고.
라라가면 라이 로미다세 도치가스 세근도아스 도치가스 가슴바스 라이게 데레스 된다.
Oh, right. Okay. So, I see.
No.
So actually, there's something missing in the English translation. It talks about the kap sum la. So it's three types of gods. So this, Geshe-la said, refers to the understandings of these gods, such as where they'll be born in the future, the previous rebirth that they came from, and so forth. They're said to remember those things. So it is said that perhaps not all of the devas, not all of those in the god realm have these awarenesses, but many of them do. Yeah. And so then those gods, in their realms, there is a kind of a divine sort of heavenly music that they are able to hear. In fact, the translator completely... So then we imagine that offering those beautiful heavenly sounds of those deities, that we offer this to the Lama and request him to turn the wheel of the Dharma. So we also know that the Buddha, when he first turned the wheel of the Dharma, right, that one of the first beings to request that turning of the wheel of the Dharma was the deity Brahma, and we can imagine that this is like that heavenly music that was offered at that time as well. And in this way, making this offering and requesting the turning of the wheel of the Dharma, this is an antidote to specifically any negativity we may have accumulated from abandoning the Dharma.
다 던지기 치숨발라 때는 가로서 다 녀저도 시저가 니크바 노지지야 알아왔단다.
Yeah.
데니엘와 세바조로 노스.
And also it is asking us to awaken from the sleep of the obstructions. So these are the specific two types of obscurations, the afflictive obscurations and the knowledge obscurations.
리소이 어디 이사요 바시로와 다 시지 네 거래 어데레 다데 냥엘마다 와서 하다바 시지 마타 자이 녜도란 로케데 윤제 마토바 자주 에오 마시 시모투 요메 도지탈라 템바주 냥엘마다 와서 하다바.
So the next one is entreating. So this is specifically the request to the holy beings not to pass into para nirvana until all living beings have attained the state, the breath of blissful release, of the realization of being free from existence and peace. Please remain firmly.
시타도 시타. 시타도 시타 타파파가 꽉히텔 에옴 시야레스 에옴.
So it mentions evam here. So evam is said to be this combination of two syllables that represent abandonment of the extreme of existence, of samsara, and abandonment of the extreme of peace, of nirvana.
단 노이 릴팅 대시 잡아 이나요. 만에 다 제바지 시라 버스 츠바 시라 제바지니 녀도 초소나 에본다고 저하고 말레스.
So if we think about it from a sutra perspective, evam, the syllable representing union, it's if we practice perfect method and perfect wisdom together, we're able to abandon both the extremes of existence and the extreme of peace.
어떤 거야 자기는 더니 그투 순주 그투 순주라 템보 주니라
Karisunju.
그투
Kudangtuk. Oh, yeah. And if we think about it in terms of Tantra, we can think about it in terms of the union of holy body and holy mind.
하고서라 어다 템보 주니라 다 나로서 시타도 시타리와 도와시시로노.
So in this way, please remain firmly on this Vajra throne and help us to abandon the extremes of both solitary peace and the abiding in existence in samsara.
어다 대파 시리즈도더니 야바 어다 베야 간절 파소와다 요아르ten 소속 체도 쪼지데 된 로가레 수비아레스.
And although we are making this request to the guru deity and so forth, actually this request of entreating not to pass away, it also acts as a factor for our own longevity, for our own long life.
야 단디소 당가사에 들으.
So we'll skip over the last two sections of this. Nganso Jitsun Lame Tuke Shiri. So we'll go back to page 14, the blessing by the guru. Jesu Lame Tuke Shiri.
Dutse nange jambade ronge shyo ni ju di jo choda nge de malu toba jo.
So we'll recite a few recitations of the name mantra. Om A
Guru Benja Dara Vajendra Samadha Shasana Dara Samadha Shirubera Sawasidi Hum Om A Guru Vajadara Vajendra Sumati Shasana Dara Samudra Shi
Remember, it's the other version. Om A Guru Vajadara Vajendra Sumati Shasana Dara Samudra Shi Badra Sawasidi Hum Om A Guru Vajadara Vajendra Sumati Shasana Dara Samudra
Shirubera Sawasidi Hum
Om Guru Vajadara Vajendra
Sawasit. Yeah.
Okay, so now we'll do the prayer of the graduated path on 15. Cheda yungi dewa male be janjo mano lade je arajo shaje memo ngene sojo dabe demba janjelo nojo jewe jama dajo de dojo mo de nando jame be dono shaye no yama ye wa doje jewe dawa janjelo zege ngendo jele jobe bo joso denjo jaso le zudem
Kana leje jojo semba ye de donge neba jonje lo seme leje jojo la wonge pozo gojo lo we je je do toye ngenjo jabe di gane la so nyole je ba jonje lo to me tene jonje le jonje so je go be na ye ma je do mo zo so ne se jo ra je de je ba jan zo lo ba jonje lo Radha yome nyamja me longo jaje dene dombe ngo zambo gome jawe jala sunde gi na jo jila jewa janjelo sende no je tembe shenye je jene je shanga je go jene ne jo zawa don se don ba na zu jin zu wa ne ba chen je la nie me de don ye je tene je go je le ro yo wa ra je ne go du zu je de je cha ga je ze di me do jo wa chen je lo
So Geshe-la said that some very holy beings, some realized teachers, they say that actually it's here at the bottom of 17 that one should begin reciting the mantra rather than after the absorption. And Geshe-la said that this actually makes sense because at the point before the absorption, right, the Guru deity is still abiding at the place in front of you, which makes it possible to do different visualizations. And we can imagine at the Guru deity in front, an Om at the crown, an A at the throat, and a Hum at the heart. And we can imagine that lights and nectars from the Hum at the heart of the deity go out to all of the realms, bringing back the blessings of holy body, holy speech, and holy mind of the Buddhas and their children from the extent of space. And then these dissolve into the seed syllable, and we can also think of a bit of a vaster concentration being, in particular, the seed syllable with the letters of the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, radiating lights and nectar. So Geshe-la said we don't have a lot of time left, but let's do a few recitations of Om Mani Padme Hum regardless. I think as we recite this holy mantra, all sentient beings that we visualized around us are reciting it with us.
lama semba se tukatini ane mei pimboji yobaji di nonne omane peme ho da tevno yi patoyo osonatone o lama semba se lama shirezi pogette si da yorwas di tukal mei pimboji
Mei Pumbo.
me yobaji di nonne taba mane gida tevno yi tayo.
And so we can think now at the heart of the deity, the mantra is surrounded by fire, like the visualization abiding in flames. And we can imagine that this mantra also emanates the sound of Om Mani Padme Hum continuously like a bell, and we can do a mental recitation.
Date tagazi damayin pa tumani da siko ayina pa tagarungi pa lijikange senjikanga pa shantawaji.
Not just any kind of sound, but a sound endowed with the meaning of emptiness that, when heard by any sentient beings, can completely dispel all of their mental and physical suffering. Then we can return back to our audible recitation, the Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. So Geshe-la suggests this as a strategy for reciting the mantra. We do some verbal recitation, then we do the meditations for the mental recitation, and then when we get tired of those, we go back to the verbal recitation.
Tenesono tuk tama tenesono tuk soso yinere pogesi dai ne kar yina je mombochi la tene shuare ma roji chaba tene me sombachi.
And then when we come to the end of the recitation, we can contemplate that the visualization in front, as well as ourselves, the sounds and so forth, all of these arise due to causes and conditions. None of them are inherently existent or independent. They are empty of inherent existence.
Jito je tendiga kita leka shibiti tla tiene la majire tukane desegeze pada me pargo de tsipindo wari tukasi ji yuzu shawale mashu.
And we can think that from these causes and conditions and this contemplation, then from the Guru Avalokiteshvara, light, rays, and nectars emanate, blessing ourselves and all the assembled sentient beings. We can imagine that ourselves, our own body, and the body of all the beings is completely filled with these lights and nectars, and that this completely clears away any impurities or obscurations. We can visualize this as like dust or so forth coming out of the bottom part of the beings. Think that through this practice, then, myself and others, our bodies are well and happy, our minds are well and happy. So we'll continue. Top of 18. Deda zawa dabe lama jo gijin jinde rangi zambu ju da je ninge mi je de da la yo be de la me go semba zo ze nga je zawa yi tu ge da yi de nga je ge ko le de zen jamba ne de do de de go ja lu do ye de ge za je gya we je la ma le do la yang e de ne je ge jong de nang zha ri zo ba be song zo do ye we ne jo jo la ne ba jo. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we'll do just one recitation today of the 100-syllable mantra to purify. Yeah. So Geshe-la was just actually explaining that some lamas have said that reciting the mantra at this point is actually tougher for beginners, that it can be easier to recite the mantra when the visualization is still present. Om Padma Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Padma Sattva Tenopa Tita Jito Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Subokayo Mebawa Anurato Mebawa Sawa Siddhi Meprayatsa Sawa Kama Sutsame Sisanshi Yankuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sawa Tathagata Pema Mame Mutsa Pema Bawa Mahasamaya Sato Ahum Samaya Manupalaya Pema Sattva Tenopa Tita Jito Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Subokayo Mebawa Anurato Mebawa Sawa Siddhi Meprayatsa Sawa Kama Sutsame Sisanshi Yankuruhum Ha Bhagavan Sawa Tathagata Pema Mame Mutsa Pema Bawa Mahasamaya Sato Ahum Om Pema Sato Samaya Manupalaya Pema Sato Tenopa Tita Jito Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Subokayo Mebawa Anurato Mebawa Sawa Siddhi Meprayatsa Sawa Kama Sutsame Sisanshi Yankuruhum Bhagavan Sawa Tathagata Pema Mame Mutsa Pema Bawa Mahasamaya Sato Ahum. Yep, so we'll just continue. Dizu leje daje boji je lote gyawe chutsu kunde tsa shedro gesa geba sa je je shiba drebe sida ze jochi punzu gele jewe raji be gade chasi nobu gezenche minu siso lana dewa ye penten deva bundu jojoji gyachi inzo gemi chinyambo tiki gemi punzu tazi ne deki nangwa dawe gezenche yeche nangba tsimbe nye joji dorna hewe chengwa geche jen dame nijo jisu yunye de kanjo wangshu sunju daza che Beme de la ni de se joro chi sa che gewe ma ju ti je de sho de kan de mi to go so gi si ji ge le ya ne da wa da pe ji ge se da we cha shi jo yong ju sen ju rimbo che ma che pa na che jo ji che wa nyang ba me ba yang go ne gon de pe wa sho tong ni ta wa rimbo che ma je pa nam che jo ji che wa nyang ba me ba yang go ne gon de pe wa sho jang pe pa ji da tian ba da kundu sambo de yon de jo de da kundi jesu da lo chi gewa do do tong che ra do ngo du sun she be gewa tam she gi ngo wa gong la cho do nga ba de da gi ge sa wa di gun kyang zambo she she ra do ngo wa gang ri ra we ko we shi gang zu pen dang de wa ma lu jong we ne Chere ziwan tenzin jazo yi shabe site bardu tengyo.
우리 관계 개인이 발라테네다 강에 근처서 망냐바 간디 지여바 이나이 대신에 소마서 먹다 절도하지.
Through the merits and roots of virtue accumulated by myself and others, may all our evil thoughts and may all beings who possess evil thoughts, may those evil thoughts be completely cleared away.
개인이 받던지 라테네다 야와 도제 쳐봐 조시비시도 막간가 라라 그세 땜바도다 뒤 이해돼 강간 잡아지.
And through the power of these merits accumulated by myself and others, may His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama and all holy beings be able to have long lives and abide in this world for the benefit of beings for a very long time. And through the causes and conditions of these merits, may the sun of happiness shine without differentiation on all 6 types of beings within samsara. And may, through the force of these merits, may everyone's practice flourish to perfection. So we'll pause there. So in this way, we've been able to end the very last part of this year doing something very auspicious and beneficial. And so Geshe-la wishes you all Losar la Tashi Dele a very happy new year, and he wishes you continued auspiciousness and flourishing in the implementation of your practice in the new year. And really, in this new year, to really accumulate the causes to be really able to commit ourselves to establishing the welfare of others. That's an aspiration we can definitely do. So think in this way, happily and in harmony with others. Geshe-la prays that your practice will continue to increase and flourish. So this is his New Year's wish for you. So we'll end the session there. Thank you so much, everybody. Geshe-la's like, get up. It's kind of a long time.
Thank you. And we have Paula leading the session this afternoon for all those who were able to come.
Yes, so join that at 1 o'clock.
Oh, that's 3 o'clock.